That's all, more or less. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am very happy that that I can host this event, Zikaron Basalon. It started as a project for passing the story of Holocaust survivors, I think in 2006 or a little bit later. The project of Zikaron Basalon is called Life Story. And when we think about how long we will have the possibility to speak to survivors or to witnesses, eventually it turns out in 2035 we will have no one to actually be there personally and tell us the story and share their memories. So this project was born to take to speak to the survivors personally and to be able to pass the memory forward to younger generations. And eventually we won't have much time left. So I decided to join this very, very important project of Zikaron Basalon. And I have the honor to host and to welcome a very special lady today, Annette, and her family and friends are here today in order to support her. We're going to listen, we're going to hear her story, her survival story, and the story of her family. And I think we can start.
I can start? Okay. First of all, I do it first time in English, so I hope it will be okay.
I want to say something before you start, because you asked me specifically. If you have any questions, feel free to ask at the end of the event. So make sure that we not interrupt anything. And as Annette said, it's her first time today that she's doing it in English. Normally she does it in Hebrew. So bear with us. It might be that it takes a little bit longer than an hour, or maybe we can't really time that. So thanks for your patience and thanks for being here today with us.
Okay. My family came from Poland, but in 1927 my grandfather went to Belgium, and after a few months my grandmother followed him also with the children. And they lived in Belgium all the time. My parents were married in Belgium, and when we were at home we spoke a lot of languages, but my parents decided to speak to me in German because they said Polish won't help me much in Belgium. So they spoke with me Polish. And I'm their only my grandparents, I'm their only granddaughter and also the only daughter of my parents. In 1940, Belgium was invaded by the Germans. The Belgian king didn't fight against the Germans, he let them in. He was befriended with Hitler, and he married his second wife, and Hitler sent him flowers, and the Belgian people, especially the French-speaking people, were very angry about this. Of course, the situation became more dangerous, but not in the beginning. Many people left already, Jewish people left Belgium. They went by cars through France to Spain and Portugal because there they could board ships to the United States. And but they didn't get to the United States because they didn't let them in. So they went all to Cuba, and there was quite a big community of Belgian people in Cuba, and then after the war they went to the States, or some came back to Belgium later on.
Do you want to speak about
Just
The four children
pardon?
of your parents?
No, no,
Of your
not yet.
grandparents?
I'm not there yet.
Okay. Oh, good. Good. Oh, good.
The Belgians, the Germans started looking for Jewish people, but not like in the beginning less. But there were people who were arrested and they were liberated. My father was arrested in Belgium by the Belgian police. They came one day, this I remember. They came one day in the evening and they arrested my father. And my mother sent me to a neighbor and she hid me under the bed. Later on, my family, somebody took me to a village and there were another one or two Jewish children and we were hidden there. After a time, an informer told Germans that Jewish children are hidden in the village, so they came to look for us. And the family who we lived there took us to the forest, and we stayed there the whole day and during the night. And the next morning, I suppose they must have told the people who brought me that they should come and take me back, because they were afraid already that they will find us. That what was and after that, my father was liberated and my parents decided to go to live in Brussels, and they found a flat there. Brussels was more safe than Antwerp. In 1942, the Jewish population was ordered to wear the yellow star. So that became very dangerous because they didn't have to look for the Jews. They could see them in the street and arrest them. Anyway, so after I was in that village, I remember I was at somebody's home, and then my family brought me also to. I went to Brussels to be with my family, my parents. My grandfather was arrested with a big group of Jewish people one day. And the community sent a list to the German commandant that they want this list of people that he freed because they need them to organize the things in everything in the community. He said that he won't liberate those people. He said, I will liberate the first one, the middle one, and the last one. And one of them was my grandfather. So my grandfather was liberated, and he came home, and he said to my grandmother, we have to leave Antwerp. And then they went to Brussels. The landlord where they lived in his house, he found for them a flat, and he brought them at night. He took them to Brussels, to the flat he found for them with a suitcase. And that was very dangerous, because if the Germans would have arrested them, he would kill my grandparents and also the landlord. Anyway, and till after the war, he kept their flat for them. And when the Germans came, he said that's a Belgian family who left to the States. And he kept all the time the flat for them. Then, when my parents were in Brussels, they heard that the Catholic Church opened the doors to hide Jewish children. So they arranged for me to be hidden in a convent together with the underground and the Jewish people who were in the underground. And they prepared me that I should will go somewhere. I suppose so, I don't remember that. But I remember that when the lady came to take me in the evening, I didn't want to go with her. And then my parents, although it was a curfew, they went with me to the tram, because we went with the tram to her place. And that's the last time that I saw my parents. I went with her in a house outside town, and I slept there. And the next morning, another lady came to take me to the convent. And I remember that she gave me something to drink there and some there, and she said, you have to go with this lady. And I went with her. It was very dark, very early in the morning, very dark, and I suppose that probably I was crying or whatever, I was sad. And I remember I was in that train, and I heard the whistle of the train, and I think that was very sad. I arrived, why I tell you that because later, after the war, I didn't remember that. And when I was in the army in Israel, our camp was not far from here, where the train from Haifa and Tel Aviv are going. So we were in the evening on duty, and somebody heard the train and said, oh, what do you think when you hear the train? So somebody said, I'm going on a holiday or something. And I said, it sounds very sad. And I couldn't say why. I couldn't say why. Only a few years later, I connected it, because I was sad. I think it was sad, because I heard those whistles and I was sad. Anyway, we came to the first convent, and I stayed there for some time. I don't remember how long. And there was a lady from the underground who was visiting me when I was there. She came from time to time. And after a time, she took me to another convent who was nearer to Brussels. I don't know why. Maybe because Germans came to look in convents for Jewish children. We were also forced Jewish children had to speak only French, because if not, who spoke other languages in Belgium? Only Jewish people. So and they also changed my name. From my family name was Katz, and Katz is a cat in German. So they changed my name to Le Chat in French, which is a cat in French. Anyway, yes. So in that second convent, I learned probably first grade. I learned to read, to do arithmetics, to write. And I remember the class, I remember where I was sitting, and that's more or less what I remember. I remember that I had once my birthday, and suddenly one of the Jewish girls, I was the smallest in the convent, one of the Jewish girls came and hugged me and said, happy birthday. And I remember I asked her, how do you know? So she said, I know. And that was all what you could do there. That's why my parents cooked them. That I told you already. My God.
May I ask you to speak about, you told me about this little story when there was a convent, a boys' convent, and there was a hole in the wall.
Yes, I will get to it.
Okay.
In the convent, the nuns were very strict. I don't remember what we did usually, but probably in the morning we went to school, but I don't remember what we did in the afternoons. It was not like a family that a child can play or something. Everything was, arranged from hour to hour, and I don't remember if I played in the convent or not, with games or dolls or anything. I don't remember that. And in the second convent, there was next to us a convent for boys. And I mean, because those convents were actually schools. There were not just nuns there, like they have convents, but there were schools. There was a school for boys also. And one day, there was a huge yard there, and I saw a boy standing with his mattress next to his mattress, and all the children were laughing. That was the education then. Also in the girls' convent, they were very angry if somebody wet the bed or things like that. And that was a punishment for that boy because he was wetting his mattress every night. And that, I remember this so vividly that when in the beginning, when I went to gymnastics here in Israel, every time I had a mattress in front of me, I remember that. Wow. Yes, because it was something that made a big impression on me. Whatever you have during your stay in the convent. I had 3 aunts, sisters of my mother, and one of them was arrested in the one on the left side, on the right side above. The first one is my mother, the second one is the aunt, and those 3 aunts survived, the other 2 survived during the war. But she was arrested already earlier, and all the people who were, Jewish people who were arrested, they were taken to a military camp that the Belgian military left, and they took all the people there, and then from there straight they sent them to Auschwitz. So she went with a transport number 15. My parents were in Brussels, and I don't know why, but they decided that they will come, they will find another flat because my grandparents lived in the same street, were hidden in the same street as my parents. And so they went into the street, and there was in Belgium a Jewish person who was collaborating with the Germans, and when he saw German people, he arrested them. So he arrested my parents, and he took them to that camp, which was in a city between Brussels and Antwerp. And afterwards, they were sent to Auschwitz with transport number 21. I don't remember exactly, but I know that I saw later all those stories that there were about 25 or 23 transports who went from Belgium to Auschwitz. About 30,000 people didn't come back. And so... And my 2 aunts, I'm not so far now. Yes, this is the picture of my parents in the middle there. So when my father was in the train, he sent a postcard to my grandmother. He wrote it in, you see, he wrote it in German. And then on the other side, he's asking politely somebody to put it in a post box. And
I would like to read it if you don't mind. I would like to read it.
Yes, okay.
So we
And
can-
it arrived, not in the sanatorium where my aunts were. Is the postcard arrived. I have a disco postcard at home.
So it says, he starts with, I think, Polish, you said, right?
Yes, yes. And then he changed to German.
then he changed to
so he thought
German.
it will be easier. People will read it.
And he says, we are on the way. Where to, we don't know. We have courage and hope that we will see each other again quickly. I hope that you will organize everything for Annette. I am nervous because you did not write me how Madame Laura is.
That's my grandmother.
The heat is big. We hope to get through everything well. Tell Gustav that you have received a message from me. We kiss you. Greetings from Madame Hauser and Honey. And Gustav was the...
Gut was the concierge of the house of my uncle, the
a
brother of my
concierge
father.
is French
Concierge.
for like...
Pardon?
Concierge is French for like a
Building.
housekeeper
Yes,
or
like
something.
okay.
Exactly.
Oh, that's used in English also, concierge, I think. I don't- Yes. You want me to go on?
With the second postcard?
Then, and the second card came from Auschwitz-Birkenau. It's written in a pencil. It's almost, you cannot read it anymore. And there my father says that he works and he's okay. And greetings for my friends. Because those cards came from the camp. They were sending them probably to the Jewish committee, and they were distributing those cards. So he wrote it like he didn't say names and didn't say family or things like that, because they might have go and look for them, because the Germans distributed those cards.
May I add to that? As you said, you can see the very big difference between the first postcard and the second postcard, and the Germans in the camps back then wanted the people there to send postcards in order to like inform or pretend that everything is fine, that they are treated well and everything, and you can see that he's not writing with any emotions. He basically probably wrote exactly what the Germans wanted him to write. We can only assume, but this is how it was back then, and so it's a very big difference to the first postcard.
Yes, I wanted also to tell you that in the convents we learned prayers, Catholic prayers, and we had to cross ourselves. And actually I never liked to, I don't know why, but I never liked to go on Sunday to the chapel of the convent. I was looking around. I was never in a chapel before and was looking around. And one day the Mother Superior was sitting behind, and I probably looked at her. So she did to me like this, that I should look in front of me. But I was not interested, really. In the meantime, my two other aunts who they were reading, this is the building in Brussels, in a neurologic hospital, and they were, these guys, like if they were patients there. So that's what they were. And one day, they heard that the Germans are coming, and one of them hid in a cupboard, and the other one hid in her bed, and she started screaming. And the German officer entered the room, and she was screaming, and he was looking at her, and then he took out his revolver and pointed it at her. And she went on screaming, because she said that if I would have stopped screaming, he would know that I understand what he's doing. And so she screamed, and he looked at her a few minutes, and then he went out and went away. That's what happened. Yeah. From there.
Do you want to talk about the box?
The what?
The box?
Not yet.
Okay.
From the chimney?
No. The box
Wait.
that was hidden.
No, that's not. Do you think so?
Yeah.
My mother, before they left for Brussels, she wanted to hide some candles and some things that she had. So not far from their house was a drugstore, and she asked him if he can hide this for her. So he said okay, and he was living in a small house not far from there. So he buried it in his garden, and it was buried under the flowers and everything. Yes, and after the war, when my aunt came back and told him that my parents didn't come back and that he gave everything back to her.
And you still use the Shabbat candle holders?
I can, yes.
Every Shabbat, right?
I can, yes. That's the candles my mother used. Afterwards, I went already in a third convent. I don't remember who took me from one convent to the other. It must have been the same lady, Madame Monst, who took me everywhere, but I don't remember going with her. And the third, this was already in 44, and Belgium was liberated in September 44 by the Allied armies. And I remember seeing the tanks with all the soldiers going through the main road because they went to liberate Belgium in the north. They wanted to reach Antwerp because there is a big a port. They have a big port in Antwerp, and they needed supplies to bring from England to Europe there. So my aunts were also liberated, and they knew the address of the convent, the first convent where I was. They didn't realize that they were sure that I was there, so they went on the train and came to look for me there, and I wasn't there. So they were very upset, and then they came back to Brussels and went to the Jewish committee, and they met this lady who took care of me, and she said, "Don't worry, I know where Annette is, I will bring her to you." And she went in that convent who was in the south of Belgium, and she brought me back to my aunts. And they lived in the street where my grandparents were, but not in the same flat. And afterwards, they took a bigger flat, and we were together, my grandparents and my two aunts and me. But the war was still going on, and it was very dangerous because the Germans were bombing. They had, how do you say that? I have it written here. Yes, unpiloted flying bombs. They were called V1 and V2. And those bombs were flying. You heard them when they were flying. But at the moment they were coming down, they were silent. So not always they knew exactly where those bombs were falling. And there was an alert, and we went every time in the cellar to hide because of those bombs. In 1945, as you know, the war finished, and the Jewish community started taking many children out of the convents. They didn't want them to stay there. But later on, in the convents, they said, yes, but you are not family, so there are children. If nobody came to take them out, it was difficult to take them. And there are a few, maybe 20, 30 or something like that, Jewish children who remained in the convents, and they became probably nuns or whatever. I remember that they were talking about a boy who became a missionary and went to Congo or wherever. Yes, because they would have given a child to an aunt or an uncle, but not to a Jewish committee. I must say I was very lucky that I have a very good and loving family that took care of me. In the beginning, I didn't know that my parents died because they didn't want me to tell. They were not sure if they will come back or whatever, where they were. So they waited quite some time till they told me. They knew because they went every time. There were lists of people who were alive, who came from the camps to Belgium, and they didn't see their names there. So they understood that they are not alive. This Madame Mons, who took care of me, I visited her after the war in her house in Brussels. And she said, come again, I want to see Annette, and so on. And later my aunt phoned her to visit her, so somebody, I think one of her sons, answered that she died. And I was very sorry. She was a very nice person. My family stayed in Brussels till 47, 48, and I went there to the municipality school. And I liked to go to school. And when we went back to Antwerp, I went to say hello, goodbye to the headmistress, and she told me, I'm very sorry that you're leaving because Jewish children are good students. And I was very happy that she said that, and went home and told my family. Also, when we returned in Antwerp, I went I finished there elementary school, and then I went 2 years to the high school. And afterwards, in 1950, when the Korea War started, so my grandfather said, what will be now, another war or so? He said, no, we have to go to Israel. So, okay. And one of my aunts, she went already to Israel in 1949. She didn't want to live anymore in Europe. So she came to visit us. And in 1952, I went back with her to Israel because I said, if you want to go, I have to know where I have to learn, here or there. I didn't want. So I went with her to Israel, and I finished high school here. And then I went back to Belgium to visit my family, and I stayed there a few years. I wanted to study, but they didn't let me study because they couldn't accept me because I didn't learn enough history and things and literature that I learned in Belgium. Also Latin. I learned 2 years of Latin, but I didn't learn. They learned 6 years of Latin. So they said, you don't know enough to go to university. I was very sorry about this. And my family wanted me still to stay with them a little bit. In 1960, I went to England to improve my English. And I stayed there about a year and a half, and the schools were usually in the evening. So in the day I couldn't work because you're not allowed to work there, foreign people. So I found a job in the Laotian embassy. They needed somebody who knows English and French because they spoke French. Laos was a part of Indochina before. And the French were there. So I worked there about 8 months or 9 months, and then I decided to go back to Israel. I went first to my family, and they also were already preparing to go to Israel, so I went to Israel, and they came 1 year later after me. And when I came to Israel, I went into the army, and when my grandparents came, my aunt from with the ship, I was very proud. I went there with the uniform to meet them. What is something else? In 1956, I married a lawyer. He was a graduate of the University of Jerusalem, and we have 2 daughters, which is sitting here. Two. And my grandfather died in 1968, and my grandmother in 1972. In 1977, unfortunately, my husband died of a cardiac arrest, and he was 46. So I raised my daughters by myself. I went also back to work. I worked in the department in a bank of international relations and public relations, because I knew languages, so that helped a lot. We made all the foreign languages books and everything of the bank. I did the French and the English. And that's all, more or less, yes. Now, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was at home, and somebody phoned me from Belgium that they found in Brussels documents from my father in the building where there was the flat they lived there. I was very surprised, and he gave me, that's when I made it limp. It was hidden in the chimney, and they made renovations in that house, and the constructor saw a package falling. So he opened it, and he saw Hebrew letters there, and he had Jewish friends, so he knew it was Hebrew. So he went to somebody, and he gave him that package, and they tried to find me through Yad Vashem, but gave a testimony to Yad Vashem, so the phone of my daughter was there. And I phoned this man, and he said, listen, when somebody was so excited because he didn't know if I was alive or where I was. And then he said that in the package there was the original Ktubah, the contract, Jewish marriage contract, and the original, and there was a booklet of the municipality of Antwerp that they had a civil marriage, because you had to make a civil marriage also in Belgium. And then there was a booklet that my father was a volunteer in Antwerp, and then also a booklet for rations on my name. So he said, he told me when I come to Israel, when somebody goes to Israel, I will send it to you, because he didn't want to send it through the mail. He went to the Israeli embassy. They didn't want to take it because they said that's something private. He was very upset about that. And then I said to him, how long do you have? No, I'm looking for you already 3 days. So I said, so that's not much. And then I remember I spoke with him on a Tuesday, and on Friday morning I had it in my house. A friend came to bring it to me, and that's when I received that, my daughter is sitting next to the papers.
And that's Kenneth Fuhrman, right? That's the one who found...
Yes, the one on the right. No, the one on the left.
On the
That's
left.
the Belgian constructor, and this one is, yes, Kenneth, who he had there. And they came for Pesach to Israel, and I met this family, and I invited them for lunch on Shabbat, and I was really pleased. And then I said, I want to buy you a present. He said, no, I don't need anything. You just buy me a mezuzah, because he went in a new house. He bought a house, a mezuzah. So I said, okay. And when they came, I brought it. And for the Belgian constructor, I bought 2 books about Israel to thank him. He was so excited when I phoned him. This Kenneth told me, you must phone him, because he was so excited that he found that. And I spoke with him, and it's actually...
And this is a Belgium newspaper, right? A magazine?
No, not from a Belgium. This is Baruch Feiga, net an As, it is in French. This is in a French Jewish newspaper in Brussels. And it was also published in a Jewish Yiddish newspaper in Antwerp, that story. And I had friends who went with me to school in Belgium, and I didn't know they were in Israel. And one of them received that book from Brussels, this brochure. He received this, and then when he wrote it, he said, that's our Annette Katz. So they found my telephone, and we met already, and we are in contact, and we... Yes, I was the first one from my class who came to Israel. And then later on, other people came also, but some of them, one of them, he was in my class, he was a very good student. He knew already that he wanted to study to be a doctor. And he told me, and he was later a very known cardiologist in Belgium, and also a professor at the university in Brussels. And he lives in Jerusalem now. His children are here, and so on. Many children, when they finished high school there, they came to Israel to live here. So that's more or less. I want to do something that I wrote here. I hope that you will remember my story and understand that we were lucky to survive with the help of people who endangered themselves for us. I hope that you will also understand why we were so proud that we have a country of our own. I am also proud that I raised my beloved family in Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette.
I want to say something else.
Careful.
Oh, I'm going together with a... Just a minute. I want also to express my special gratitude to Kate for spending many hours to bring my story and this whole project to life. Kate, please accept a small token of my appreciation.
Oh. Wow, thank you. Merci beaucoup. So we will have a little bit of time before I want to do a small commemoration for your family. Has anyone questions? Do we have questions from YouTube? Anything that you would like to know, that you would like to ask Annette about her story? Yeah?
At the end, you said that you were the first one who came to Israel
Yes.
from your class.
Yes.
There were a lot of Jewish people in your class?
No, we were small classes in the Jewish school. We were not,
It was a Jewish school.
of course, of the Jewish school in Antwerp. Yes, from the Jewish school. Yes. We were 15 pupils, 17 pupils in the class.
So I remember that I asked you this question. Have you ever returned to Antwerp later on?
No, I have not returned to Antwerp. I don't see it as... I was in Poland once in the... I wouldn't go to Poland if my family was alive because they suffered from the Polish people and they were so anti-Semitic that they were even worse than the Germans because when they that's what my grandmother told me, when they wanted to speak, to say a child, if you don't behave, the Jew will come and take you, so, and things like that. They were very anti-Semitic. And I was in Poland, we were in Warsaw, and there was in the street, and a man came along. He was probably drank too much because the Polish like to drink, and he started shouting Jews, like they were shouting in Polish. I understood what he said. Jews go to Palestine, and that they were always saying Jews go to Palestine. And when I came to Israel, they told me the Polish army was here with General Anders during the war. And some Polish soldiers were in the street and they were probably drunk. And they started shouting, here, Jews to Palestine. So the Jews took them and gave them a good spanking. So you said, you are in Palestine now, so...
Speaking of Israel, is there anything that you would like to pass to the younger generation in Israel?
Yes, that they should remember what happened to us and tell it further on. Because, like you said, there won't be many people left to tell those stories. Certainly not now we're here in Poland. They try to change the history. It's ridiculous. Those are my parents and my aunt who was murdered also.
Yes, do we have any other questions before we do the commemoration? Sure.
Sure.
From what age you knew that your parents will die?
I think I was 9, more or less, because they didn't tell me immediately. I think maybe 9, yes.
And who told it to you?
My family.
Sure.
How did your grandparents survive? I didn't.
They were also in Brussels. They lived in a flat. I didn't say that. They lived in a flat. They didn't leave the flat for 2 years. And the neighbors brought them food. They had rations, so they brought them food. And they had a friend. There was a Russian painter living in that house. So he had a lot of Jewish friends because he has a Jewish grandmother, and he liked very much my grandmother. So and he didn't have any money. He was a painter, so sometimes he didn't have what to eat. So when he got a ration of butter, he ate the butter with not only the butter and not with bread or something. And my grandmother sometimes invited him. She said, I made the soup, come and eat with us. And one day he came to my grandparents and he brought them matzot for Pesach, because he knew that they won't eat bread. And he had Jewish friends who made matzot at home for Pesach, so he brought it. And my grandmother was very angry. She said, if the Germans would have arrested you, because he was not Jewish anymore, they arrested you with that package, they would kill you. Yes, that's how they went through.
Thanks. Do we have questions from the live stream? Okay, great. So I would like to have us a minute of silence to commemorate Sabina Lachs, who was murdered in Auschwitz. We don't really know when she died exactly.
No.
Feiger Katz, Annette's mother.
I forgot to tell you, my mother died in Auschwitz-Birkenau, and my father died in Warsaw. I was very curious, how did he arrive to Warsaw when he was in Auschwitz? Because it's very far. Auschwitz is in the south of Poland. And I never knew that till one of my friends from school, they told me that there was in Belgium a young man. He was also in Auschwitz. And when they bombed the Warsaw ghetto and destroyed it, they brought people from Auschwitz to clean the place. And that was probably the reason that my father was there, because I have no exact date when my mother died, but I have the exact date when my father died. So that's probably what happened there.
So I would like us to be 1 minute in silence and to commemorate them and to make ourselves sure that we will always remember the story. And I thank you very much, Annette.
You're welcome.
And never forget.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I want to thank Annette. I want to thank family and friends who joined us, my colleagues, everyone who's watching today. I thank Nitzan for helping. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nadav, for helping us. Thanks to Sapir. She's not here today. She's from Zikaron, Basalon. Thank you very much for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.